Every new Who episode of Doctor Who in 10 seconds or less. 166 reviews. Let's go. Rose, the perfectly placed pilot. Exton grounds the series with one monologue. End of the world. Batshit creature feature that has RTD all over it. Maybe a little bit too camp on audacious for its own good, but that ending leaves me in tears. Unquiet Dead. Utterly okay. There's no real takeaway aside from the box does period pieces and get used to Cardiff. Aliens in London, a part 1 with a kooky mystery that mostly dosses. All the monsters, plot and political commentary is next episode. This two-parter, it's a slow burn. The Slovene are great now as they were back then. Ridiculous bombastic fun, and a comment about the War on Terror, majorly slighted by fart jokes and our main cast of characters not being likeable yet. Dalek watches Shim and reveals the Doctor's true character, salvages the show's most iconic villain, and writes the new Who series Bible all at once. The Long Game, the Adam Mitchell episode where Nine and Rose feel like spare parts. Political plot doesn't utilise its giant potential and trades it in for an episode about 2 lame CGI effects. Father's Day, never given enough credit. Rose's best outing in a visceral, scary and intimate story. Back to the Future vibes are plenty. Empty Child, Enter Moffat. Perfect pacing, dialogue and plotting. Blitz London is the show's most real location, and the horror had me traumatised as a child. 2 weeks later, I finally had the guts to continue. Funny, warm and victorious in a hopeless time period. Perfect story. Also, this Doctor fucks. Boomtown! RTD, a Slovene and a great short-lived TARDIS team enjoy a fun romp in Cardiff. Quickly becomes a very dark, very real drama for everyone involved. Except Jack, who's accepting Cardiff Bay as his future prison. Bad Wolf. I've always struggled attaching this tonally to the finale. Great point about never-ending game shows is undercut by the unfortunate pick of outdated game shows. There's a lot of fun and great acting to be had. Exton then does the home run, showing why he's one of the greatest actors to ever touch the roles. RTD does wonders with the budget, inventing a new peak of stakes for this programme. Christmas Invasion. I bust this one out rarely. It's the first Doctor Light episode and it doesn't do much for me, but it shows a UK government fight alien bullies solo. Bizarre Christmas viewing. Attack of the Grask. I love this at a very 10-year-old level. Leave me alone. New Earth. This is actually a great premise, completely hijacked by nobody's favourite Series 1 villain returning and Rusty Davis shenanigans. Body swapping in his first episode? Tooth and Claw. If you can get beyond the Rose Doctor flirting, Series 2 has some solid stories, and the CGI action run around gets remarkably intense. School Reunion. The script might feed Sarah Jane and Rose some truly insufferable dialogue, but a fun story with a top cast. The weaponization of things from the past to tell stories about characters in the now is sublime. This isn't about Sarah Jane and K9, this is a story about Rose and Mickey. Still waiting for the Krillitanes to return. Any day now. Go on the Fireplace, a period piece and a dark sci-fi in one. The kind of story that should have been done decades prior. I always forget it, but it's romantic, magical and hilarious. Yeah, that's Moffat, right? Rise of the Cybermen. More TARDIS Mickey is great, but episode assumes I care more about parallel London than I actually do. Promise of Cybermen just about keeps me hooked. I never see Age of Steel given its dues. A remarkable large-scale zombie action series finale midway through the series. Jackie's conversion, close to the mark. The Cybermen actually made scary. Mickey's departure is sadder than Rose's. The Idiot's Lantern, on the other hand, is the revival's first major dud in my books. It's light and fun enough, and the 50s are fully realised, but an unbearable villain, smarmy dialogue, and a misguided ending. Go to him. All start to make Rose look bad. The Impossible Planet is Series 2 back on form, as newbie Matt Jones puts all other Base Under Siege stories to shame. Tennant shines here, but never overshadows one of the greatest supporting casts we've ever seen. Next week, Rose takes command in the still terrifying survival story, whilst the Doctor's curiosity takes him philosophically against the unknown. This is the crowning jewel of Series 2. 11 monsters. Somebody let Russell loose again! Mark Warren and Camille Kaduri steal the show, whilst Peter Kay and Rusty Davis almost break it. It is a shame that British TV burned some of their best talent on this. A Doctor Cult is a genuinely good premise, delivered in the most puzzling and eccentric of executions. Fear her. Trash. Genuine trash. I like the idea of a lonely alien lashing out, but I genuinely hate the character's location, dialogue and acting. Even from Tennant. Army of Ghosts. The Torchwood Institute alone could fill up a whole 2-parter, and it almost does, but it's the Jackie moments, multiple twist game changes, and a looming sense of dread that make this a brilliant setup. Doomsday. The Breakup. I think we can admit to ourselves now it's overly melodramatic and a 70s kid's wet dream, but it's a bit too ambitious for its own good. Both villains just wind up as window dressing. And we're running again. A frenetic, fun story that goes a mile a minute but carries a proto-Donna purposely at her worst. I don't love it, but I'm always won over by the last 15 minutes. Smith & Jones, the best introduction to a companion ever, also serves as a brilliant jumping on point, an underrated Russell powerhouse of a script. Then, Gareth Roberts did Shakespeare. As much as some might want to turn against this one, it's undoubtedly good. It's a great entry into the meet a famous author and do one of their plot molds.
Can't believe I'm hearing this.
Political correctness gone mad.
Yikes. Kudos to David Tennant for trying to phrase that sarcastically. Gridlock. A dive into a dystopian drug-addled cyberpunk world at 7 PM on the Saturday evening? Edgy, grim, and earned. It's Davis's favourite script, but random macro of the week and the slow pacing of actual hitchhiking, not so hot. Hey, Daleks in Manhattan, see? A little too much of this New York period piece is devoted to pigmen, but this is a well-paced, atmospheric bit of TV. Tallulah puts the devil in me, Dalek Sec provokes confused feelings from me, but this moody, extravagant Dalek outing is one that I was much too hard on. Proper old-school serial Who. Time to slow down to a forgettable barren creature feature. There's very little to redeem Gattis's DNA immediately turning him into the Scorpion King, so I won't. 42. Breakneck pace and a great idea for a villain. Chibnall doesn't do slow. His first story is both a gimmick and a misfire. Human nature. What haven't I said about this perfectly acted, genre-changing shift of gears? The idea of showing the show as the dream journal of a schoolteacher is already genius alone, and that's in the first 2 minutes. Love you, Martha. The perfect adaptation continues, leaving terrified schoolboys and an even more scared John Smith to accept his life isn't real and to accept the dark, lonely burden, which he very much does. To everyone's cost. Blink, an offshoot horror short filled with Moffat wit. It's good. Really good. But I just think Stephen is too good at writing the Doctor to be following around the ineffectual Sally Sparrow and friends. Utopia. This story is a twist reveal in a bottle and it kills. The only problem with this story is that there's so little of it. Sound of Drums, my favourite action story by far. Living rough in a secret-pleased paranoid Britain run by a madman is just brilliant desperate Who that doesn't hold back. Last of the Time Lords, on the other hand, utterly drops the ball. Compelling for most of the runtime, but done in by a ridiculous climax, truly terrible resolution, with a now cartoony master and a literal cartoon Doctor. Time Crash, a surprising return to tepid references, technobabble and fan service that seems much more up Davis' street than Moffat's. 5 and 10 similarities are purely cosmetic and general red-nosed viewers must have been bewildered. Voyage of the Damned is a Christmas Day Doctor Who popcorn movie, definitely more Emmerich than Cameron. Titanic, this is not. Partners in Crime, an episode mostly based around slapstick and fat pills, is definitely a strange one. Fun, but I will skip. Fires Up Pompeii is the Don and Noble companion showcase. Their chemistry is instant. Fantastic monsters and a city caper plot turned morality test. Planet of the Ood. I couldn't tell you one thing wrong with this slave revolution story. The Doctor's hypocrisy and revel and helplessness in the episode is refreshing. Fuck imperialism, be an Ood. The Sontaran Stratagem. It's a mostly feckless unit story that takes forever to get to the actual invasion. Classic Who style. The cliffhanger is small, but especially effective. Poison Sky, now we're going. One of the most slapped on stories ever. The unit action, worldwide attack, and shared Radigan are all highlights in this childhood favourite. But then the Doctor had her daughter. Martha's inclusion aside, this is the only dud in Series 4. Many will disagree, but the cloning war is generic, Tennant is led to overact, and Jenny is an annoying doe-eyed distraction. Hated it as a kid, love it now. The episode is clearly having as much fun as the Doctor and Donna are throughout. Ten gets to mix up his usual demeanour and the technical decisions are all perfect. Who meets Clue? Hey, who turned off the lights? Just a smart premise against a smart villain in a vivid location. What's not to love? Well, that all depends on how much like a good old-fashioned Moffat mystery. Get ready to be kept in the dark. Forest of the Dead. Primary threat stays strong, the mystery does all come together nicely, but its finale does get a little bit unfocused. At one point the Doctor just tells the swarm of shadow piranhas to go away. And they do. And it's the highlights. Midnight is one of the smartest bottle episodes on TV. I love how all of the Doctor's usual strengths are his undoing in a real emergency. The story hits close to home. This dystopia dark timeline of the Whoniverse is unbelievably gutsy. Better than any episode of Years and Years, this is some of Rusty Davis's best work over the top of his old work. It gets real, subtly sets up the finale, and converts the last of the Don dislikers for good. The Stolen Earth is the culmination of New Who's world building and television achievements, and there's nothing like it. An absolute end-days blockbuster that makes an Avengers crossover out of the BBC budget. Journey's End is a little weaker, and much more return to the drama Doomsday Mo Davis, but it's still iconic moment after moment. It's also remarkably unpredictable. The final lines with Donna and Sylvia are flawless. The next Doctor allows the Doctor to smile again. With all of the fun of a multi-Doctor story, I unfairly forget how great this one is, mostly because of its overblown mecha finale. Davis didn't have to keep one-upping himself. Morrissey and Steampunk Cybermen are more than enough. Planet of the Dead, a fittingly barren adventure. I don't blame you if you forget this one exists. I hope Lady Christina gets a life sentence. Waters of Mars might be the most affecting story that nobody talks about. Between this and the finale, Tennant delivers some of the greatest Doctor moments ever seen on screen. End of Time! Part 1, the first story that made me feel secondhand embarrassment for watching it. Wilfred aside, this is a true mess of a story and I hate the cliffhanger passionately to this day. End of Time Part 2, I'm on the record as calling this one of the greatest episodes of Doctor Who I've ever seen. Tennant acts his heart out from defeat, admiration, vicious outrage and terrified bloodlust. The amount of times the character just solemnly considered giving up is something we haven't seen in a long time. Dalton's Rassilon is amazing and the goodbyes are greater than any just one plot or story. It's an era, it's the era, ending, and it's more than earned. I hope the Doctor went and paid back the cacti people. That was longer than 10 seconds. The 11th Hour truly feels like a pilot. There's so much left behind in this story that weirdly never comes back, and the villain is both lame and wastes Olivia Colman. Growing pains aside, Matt Smith and Karen Gillan hit the floor running. Beast Below, the final monologues from 11 go so much harder than any episode 2 needs to. Perfect dialogue and fairy tale sci-fi ideas throughout. This Doctor, I'm sold. I'm sorry, you did Daleks in Trenches. Daleks in Trenches with Winston Churchill, and you still failed. A story hijacked by a Dalek reboot that nobody liked, wanted, or knew how to conclude. Abysmal. Time of Angels. For many, this is where Moffat jumped the Angels' shark. For me, this is where they prove themselves as series regulars. But for a two-parter, very little happens. Flesh and Stone, the Doctor and River continue to fluke their way through a survival story out of their depth. This one succeeds, the darker and scarier it becomes. Vampires of Venice, show-stealing performances from adore villains and a funny romp with a dislikable and overly familiar TARDIS team chemistry. Did we need the dick joke? Amy's Choice keeps up the good streak by putting the dick measuring contest to actual good use. Really great story with a ridiculous villain that wouldn't work if we didn't understand these characters. And on your left from Chris Chibnall, super underrated Silurian remix that reminds me of the stories I'd invent when I was little. Chibnall writes 11 fantastically and there's a great cliffhanger. And then part 2, Chibnall doesn't write them like this anymore. Satisfying character drama, good conclusion, slightly boring Silurians. Vincent and the Doctor. Richard Curtis was perfect for Who, finally delivering on the heartbreaking and intimate approach to time travel we never get to see. Magical, responsible, intelligent. The Lodger, on the other hand, is an episode entirely dependent on how charming you find the deeply unlikable James Corden. I prefer the original story, when it was 10 and Mickey. Remember every black day I ever stopped you! Just a few too many ideas thrown into 45 minutes, but a literal mystery box leads to some brilliant scenes and finale staging. Curiously, the cast then challenged the Rusty Davis finale by simply running around Moffat's own bullshits. There simply isn't enough substance here, and because I never buy the supposed big stakes, this is instead the cheapest episode ever. High concepts, more like lame resolution. A Christmas Carol. Sci-fi fantasy at its very best. Not only the greatest Christmas special, but one of my favourites of all time. Hilarious and adventurous, sweet and still holds up as one of the better looking productions the show's had yet. The Impossible Astronaut is a gut punch of a series opener with one of Moffat's many fake character deaths. On rewatch, it's much too fixated on the series arc, meaning that part 2 has to do all the heavy lifting. And that it certainly does. Creepy, a little ridiculous, and on such an impressive scale, this huge series opener feels bigger than any finale. Arr! Curse of the Black Spots! Utter brilliant cheese. How did it take this long for a swashbuckler? And why does an elevator of filler, Stephen Thompson, get more credit? The Doctor's Wife. Gaiman knocks it out of the park on his first try. Thick with atmosphere, with not one weak line. Truly unique. Would not complain if you made him showrunner. The Rebel Flesh is the total skip of Series 6 for me. A tonal retread of Share the Planet Cold Blood, and a plot too uneventful and a cast too unlikable to keep my interest. And then in the Almost People, it's a bunch of ideas begging to get out, and a Doctor on both sides of the conflict is top-notch, but it's held back by more detachment, awful effects, and an out-of-character cast. Why is everyone now awful? A good man goes to war. I see what you're doing here, Moffat. It's a clever script. But its melodramatic space cum soap opera rape revenge narrative is just too lame to stick the landing. Giving me more questions than answers with nothing resolved. Get used to that. Alright love, let's kill Hitler. The next in the Moffat line of subvert the perfectly good premise for more convoluted arc maintenance. Let your stories breathe, dude. This episode feels like a prank. Ha! Gotcha! It's River Song again. Night Terrors, Mark Gaddis's finest hour. Atmospheric and trope-laden, this is a hard horror story with abstract logic leading to a smart, if convenient, conclusion. The Girl Who Waited just felt like an inevitable episode. The Ponds have their dynamic tested in every way possible, with this one easily being the most intense. Smith plays his Doctor at his darkest, Rory leads an episode, but the real star is production design, the God Complex, a great cast exploring every real genius nightmare world of puppets, angels and Minotaur, and unfortunately David Walliams. Let's talk about this one more often. Closing time. The least painful 45 minutes of James Corden on all TV. Matt Smith and the baby run rings around this supposed comedy actor. Situating it inside an actual story this time leads to better tonal results. Just a shame about all the unfunny gay jokes and love defeating cybernetic conversion apparatus. Sorry Rose, I guess Jackie just didn't love enough. The Wedding of River Song. A mistake of television. Moffat at his most scatterbrained and frustrating. Hey, at least 3 arcs can finally come to a close. No, never mind, on to the next one. This story deserves a one for that Brigadier scene alone. The Doctor, the Widow and the Narnia ripoff. I cannot remember a thing about this Christmas. Rewatches show me that that's for the better. Moffat's clearly occupied with Sherlock. Wake me up when the power of family saves the day again. Asylum was my favourite Dalek story for a while. It's flawed and Oswin is deeply overbearing and smarmy, but I'll welcome a fun Dalek caper any day. The Doctor going incognito is phenomenal, but goes nowhere. Dinosaurs on a spaceship! Chibnall embraces Vasilian. My god, it's refreshing. Why Chippers can't juggle 4 cast members but can do 6 in 45 minutes is boggling. An absolute unsung 10 out of 10. Not enough villains pushed 11. Pitting him in a western as sheriff is the perfect place to explore the laws of the character. Power 3. An episode like this only works if the writer has great understanding of his characters. Chris deserves serious props for not making Amy and Rory feel out of character whilst discussing leaving the TARDIS. But the interesting plot is sadly almost non-existent. Production issues or not, you can't release an ending that unfinished. The Angels Take Manhattan is perhaps the quickest 45 minutes of my life, always moving, gorgeously poetic and tense as all hell. Finally putting River and the Angels to good use. Watch Smith's performance crumble. Another Christmas, another Bad 11 story, laughable villains, hilarious side characters, and a brooding stroppy Doctor. For all of 15 minutes. Don't bother. Series 7B. Here we go. Another smarmy Clara to not care about, and the monster is Wi-Fi! Ooh. Sure you don't want to give that one another draft, Moffat? Rings of Akar 10, or as I like to call it, BBC remembers they have a costume and prosthetics department. A CGI runaround where everything is moved by magic science wands or indulgent monologues. Guff. Not even Smith saves that ending, baby! Cold War, an episode entirely based off of a pun. That said, I couldn't imagine a different entrance for the Ice Warriors. And the pun is pretty good. I never vibed with Hyde. The Doctor is flirty until he's a cruel bastard. It's a horror until it's a love story. Hyde is a mess of ideas that sound good, but just aren't. Journey to Centerford TARDIS is probably the one good story of Series 7B. Splitting up 11 and Clara is a must. If I was a Who writer, every episode would be set in the TARDIS and everybody would hate it. The Crimson Horror. I don't trust anyone who says they like the Crimson Horror. This feels like the pilot to a gross incoherent Paternoster spin-off. And the more you push them, the worse they get. Cybermen theme park Neil Gaiman. On paper this should be amazing. It's got the ambition and scale of a novel or a comic story. Irritating performances and a medium that can't do it justice. Even Smith sucks. Name of the Doctor, a story with remarkably no rising action. Translot is cool, but for the runtime it feels like a prequel to an actual story that then suddenly ends a series arc? Substance, Stephen. And there it is! You were saving it for Paul. And quite right, if you're not going to give him his own series, you may as well knock it out of the park in 5 minutes. This dialogue is so good I could probably quote it from memory. Revival Who celebrated with not only 3 stellar actors, Time War fan service and the crowning high of this entire show, but also Moffat's best material. Where did all this come from so suddenly? Moffat has officially woken up and delivers the ultimate Who story. Yes, it is arc maintenance, yes Moffat put off the assignment to the last second, but no Doctor Who story better communicates the Doctor character or the maniacal spirit of the franchise than this one. Everybody involved should be proud of making my favourite piece of television ever. Enter the brows. The bold return to eyebrows marks a stark turning point in the show, and it's almost enough to distract you from a pish Doctor introduction. I like the Doctor's acid trip a lot more now, but Vastra was a poor setting for a new era, and the dialogue is seriously wonky. Like, even for a Regeneration episode. Into the Dalek is a story written for no Doctor in mind, which just further shows how much of the role in the screen Capaldi commands. Honey, I shrunk the Khaleds. Doesn't quite overcome a bad starting concept, but hey, I like Danny. If Doctor Who needed just one more thing, yeah, more testosterone bitching please. It's a bit of fun and Capaldi's rough edges start to play better, but mostly because this time we're laughing at him. Listen, this week's villain is Paranoia! A really cool and muted script that keeps you hanging on its every word, even with not a lot given to you. Coleman and Capaldi are magic together. The Doctor's putting together a team of cyberpunk hackers. The con is on. This sci-fi throwback of a story is insanely cool. And then the caretaker. What's shocking about this one is that it isn't bad. It should be bad, right? Danny Pink is just too charming and likeable. It's really quite essential and even adept of the character arcs. But God, where'd you find him, the villain of the week bargain bin? I wish people only saw the good in Kill the Moon. Just as darkly unpredictable as the episode's Doctor, who in one move marks himself as a new type of lead, Coleman deserved a BAFTA for the range expected of her in this climax. In any other series, Mummy on the Orient Express would be the standout. In Series 8, it's just more quality problem solving, locations, and character work. Flatline, how is a gimmick episode this good? Never losing focus on the 12 Clara relationship. Flatline has the perfect blend of horror, comedy, and style. Essentially, who at its best. You guys are mean to this one. If this come out in the Davis years, nobody would have blinked. Bad child acting? Textbook. But school kids in the TARDIS is just a privilege. And the science? Yeah, this is the fantasy part of science fantasy. I don't know what to tell you, it's Doctor Who. Dark Water opens with the Doctor's closest friend betraying him and absolutely earns it. Gomez is eating the scenery, but the Cybermen reveal is great. And then immediately overshadowed. Death in Heaven. Unit's intervention and the President of the Earth stuff make this a very different plot suddenly. Missy puts herself on full deranged display, but much like a plan, the plot is bonkers and likeable. Last Christmas, the one where every character takes turns breaking my heart. I've warmed to the Santa story over the years, but that doesn't change the fact that Nick Frost is a real limited actor and we're all pastiching Alien. The work done with Clara here is next level. The Magician's Apprentice. When it finally decides what the story is about 30 minutes in, it's pretty good. God forbid anybody tuning in for the first time catches this. Whilst The Witch is familiar, is an episode of brilliant pairings. I don't know what to say. Stick the Doctor and Davros together and you've probably got a good story. Capaldi, Bleach and Moffat's fierce understanding of a dynamic makes for what I hope is the final Davros story ever. Toby Whitehouse writes the Base Under Siege story, curving the cliches and nailing the main cast. Making me care about your secondary characters to this degree should be a crime. I love stories that make formula feel new again. Next week, the Doctor vamooses again to a less interesting episode and location. Get ready for headaches and 12 at its very coolest. Doctor Who goes Norse as the team train Vikings for the ultimate prank. It's easy to forget how fiercely good Capaldi is in this. Like, this is my Doctor. I love it, but I also turn it off before the final 10 minutes. And the series comes to a screeching halt to accommodate another minor celebrity. A couple funny lines don't excuse lions, filler, and banter, although it does have a lot of clever foreshadowing for the end of Series 9. The Zygon invasion. Parallels to Syria and refugees abound. It's still a little hard to take these designs seriously, but the ending twist, phenomenal. The Zygon inversion. Coleman gets to play villain, Osgood gets to play good companion, and Capaldi gets to play his heart out. Nobody can touch this entire scene. I'm almost sad the whole episode isn't set here. Sleep. No more. Why did you make the most unwatchable, boring episode about sleep? It's like you wanted me to dunk on this failed BBC experiment. Face the Raven. Sarah Dollard definitely gets Doctor Who, and especially Clara, but any idea here was trampled over by the finale. By the Trap Street plot being scrunched up to 10 minutes. It didn't stand a chance. Heaven Sent. It's heaven sent. Moffat is just perfect at writing intellectuals taking control of their environments. The pre-credit sting is a powerful threat, and the story never, ever stops. Hellpen! The amazing cliffhanger to end all cliffhangers goes nowhere as the Finding Gallifrey episode reveals itself to be another Clara episode. I like Clara, but come on. The worst possible answer to the hybrid imaginable, the first 20 minutes, pretty tight. Final 20, drawn out snooze fest. This is Feel Good Who. Massively underrated Christmas romper with a beautiful ending, Moffat focusing on what he does best, comedy and character. Dr. Mysterio, even New Who can't help but pitting in with corny 50s superhero parodies. Terrible, forgettable story that also happens to have a beautiful ending. No, that's not fair. The pilots. Man, I can't explain it, but Series 10 still feels fresher, newer than any of the Whittaker stuff. And that's all thanks to a sunny new companion, an amazing university hub, and a shiny new mystery box, all designed as a breath of fresh air to make you smile. It works. Smile, on the other hand, does not make me smile. Classic series, exploration-based first episode pacing for a part 2 that never comes. Thin Ice. Pearl Mackie cuts straight to the soul of the Doctor on her second outing. A fun, if slight, hangout story that revels in its own setting. Knock knock, the scariest thing in this horror story is 12 violating student-teacher boundaries. I've lived in worse student accommodation. I'm still blind. The 12th Doctor gets reckless in space again to the detriment of his eyesight, late-stage capitalism, and Nardol's heart rate. Extremists. When Moffat decides to focus, this big question mark of a plot is probably the crowning 20 minutes of Series 10. The Pyramid at the End of the World is a cool approach to an alien invasion, but fixing the Doctor's blindness? Criminal. Every part of the Monk trilogy just fails as a sequel. They feel like 3 different villains. I do not consent. The Lie of the Land. This whole script is a crime. Never actually getting round to the monks, it's a split between a regeneration fake-out, technobabble, and talking about things instead of doing them. Empress of Mars. The Doctor solves almost nothing. We've seen this set up countless times, but this alternate history coalition of chaos actually manages to play out in a new way. Well done, Gaddis. The Eaters of Light. Grumpy Capaldi's back! Super slept on historical that repeats similar beats in not so familiar ways. We absolutely need more writers back from the classic era. World Enough in Time. Fantastic twists hit back to back to back, almost all of them ruined by BBC's promotional material. And then I'm told that the Doctor supposedly falls. This isn't where I wanted the story to satisfyingly go, nor is it a very good looking episode. But for the amount of great dialogue in this, you are excused. When that ending happened, I punched the air. That is a defining Who memory for me. Big thoughts on Twice Upon a Time. This ending it's beautiful. Moffat and Capaldi's profound swan song to the character is a love letter to the entire show, and I won't hear another word on the matter. The regeneration is pitch perfect, the story restores faith in the world, and people misunderstand. It's not about the first Doctor. Final stretch, The Woman Who Fell to Earth. A new era is here. A stock runaround with no substance, the companions are just there. The Doctor seems overly familiar, but baby steps. Episode 2, The Ghost Monument. Lacking in substance, the companions are just there, and the Doctor seems overly familiar. Oh no. Then, Rosa Parks. This story was our first exposure to this run's utter lack of metaphor and subtlety. I like it because it's a story that only this era would try and do. And yeah, this is one of the show's oddest premises, won over by some great character work. Or should I say, some character work. Characters talk to each other and actually care. It was brave for this run to do an episode explicitly about social justice, but it also misunderstands the key components of social justice. Rosa Parks wasn't important because she got an asteroid named after her. Its best ideas are also the worst handled. Remember when Ryan killed Krasko? And nobody cared? Arachnins in the UK, if a friend watched this and then told me they were never going to watch the show again, I'd understand. My least favourite episode of this programme ever made, worse than the Twin Dilemma and Time Lash put together, and the epitome of everything wrong with this era. The Saranga Conundrum. Okay, right. I know you hate it, and the episode has no clue what it wants to do with its obligatory cast, but there's a new kind of threat, new kind of settings, and new kind of performances. I'll take it. Demons of the Punjab is a hugely restrained script that promises new kinds of story and a radical, exciting approach to future historicals. Best in years. I'm starting to forget what a really good story looked like. And then Kablam. It doesn't look like that. Kablam should write itself as a piece of contemporary sci-fi, but instead a coincidence with Black Friday proves that the show not only has no passion, no message, but also no backbone. Okay, stop. It's a female doctor in the witch trials. Correct, that is exactly what you just imagined in your head, but a little bit duller. It's just stuff I've seen before. Sorry, Alan. It Takes You Away is dysfunctional, but it works. It's ostensibly 3 episodes in one, but it's good. It's new. Fun, surreal idea box. It actually bothers focusing on character. Their joke about eating soil sucks shit. The Battle of Ranch Dressing. I'm so glad I wasn't the only one who slept in this one. A series finale and I'm sleeping. Imagine telling yourself that 3 years ago. There's some good CGI and Bradley almost does something with it, but it simply refuses to keep my attention. Watch out, Chibnall, getting dangerously close to writing drama there. Shame it's held back by video game effects, lore that is totally irrelevant to the story, and the hokiest Dalek performance ever seen. At least Tosin Cole and the packed hardest team of tagalongs are trying. It resembles drama, but it loses you hard by the end. And, okay, Series 12. Let's get it. Spyfall, a power series opener with a pulse. Globetrotting, a confused but fun twist, and about 5 plot elements too many. Will this episode in Plane stick the landing? Could any episode? Spyfall Part 2, the plot lost the plot, and instead devoted the next 50 minutes to ripping off Rusty Davis's scenes and master. I was angry after this broadcast because it's such a strong statement. The few things that Series 11 had that felt fresh and intentional are completely traded in. For things I've seen before, done better. This episode is ethically dodgy, pantomime yet so earnest. And Dewan's Master, this is the performance of someone who casts themselves as the Doctor in their own fan series. We will be laughing in the future at Orphan 55 in the same way we look at Delta and the Bannermen now. A scatterbrained script so bad it makes Heim's success last year feel like a pure accident. Imagine doing an "It was Earth" twist seriously in 2020. Hey, lecture me a little bit harder, you inept series of cliches. Anyone know where Benny's got to? Nikola Tesla's Wacky Night of Fun. Even a generic Monster of the Week can't spoil the fun, if basic pleasure, of this run's capabilities with historicals. Yaz gets all the good scenes for once, but 13 still struggles hard with hypocritical character beats and comfy, feckless middle-class morals. Don't change the world now. History will get around to it. Red herring of the Jadoon. This era is starting to reek of desperation. Blatant Rusty Davis pandering as a distraction to a kicker of a twist. A weirdo left-field twist. Is it a story in its own right? No, it's a series of question marks to engage ratings at the mid-season slump, but it will help cushion the fall later. Praxius. How did it take this long for the threat to be a faceless alien contagion? Having the Sea Devils or someone appear would have ruined the whole thing. Fast, gorgeous, and funny. Like, really funny. It only took 17 episodes for this run to use a political concept naturally to fuel the sci-fi. But they got there in the end. Can you hear me? It's still done awkwardly, but I'm just happy that actual metaphor and emotional beats are being attempted at all. Actual visible effort finally made it to screen. The Haunting of Villa Didi Didi. Ah yes, because cyber teeth and emotions are what the Cybermen needed. This is like a panto villain wearing Cyberman cosplay. The companions are fun, and Shelley is squandered, and the episode does the whole bare minimum with the concept. Not to be that guy, but you could have remade Silver Turk. The Cybermen get a new do. Between this and last episode, it's clear that 13 wasn't built for recycled arsehole dialogue, but it's neat that Chibnall can pull off a semi-competent Cyberman story. It's no Cyberwoman, but it's supremely functional. My dad liked it, which is the highest praise I can give an episode. And last of all, for now, the Timeless Children. We'll see how this opinion ages, but I actually don't think I mind the twist itself. It hurts the show and the other 150 episodes we've reviewed today, objectively. But as an idea, it's fine. It's just another idea of many. A profoundly silly idea done for all the wrong reasons with terrible execution. It's not interesting to be told things in a slideshow for 50 minutes, and it's not fun to have the character have no engagement in her own story. Chibnall wrote this episode in his head in the 1980s and just put it to screen today. And all of the alarm bells were going off since the beginning of the series. How do you convince casual viewers to care about the Cartmel plan or previous incarnations to William Hartnell? Because I definitely don't. We will see, as the story always goes on.